This is another episode of the Mind, Body and Pipeline podcast. I'm really excited for today's conversation with Ginny Nicholls. Ginny and I have known each other for a number of years. Her recent giving up of alcohol has been something she's very publicly communicated with everybody about. So we've had a number of different talks about it. And I'm completely inspired by her unique perspective on why she gave up alcohol and how it's impacted her health and then impacted her business, as her company's seen 2 to 3x revenue since giving up alcohol. She brings another unique experience, such depth, particularly into dropping the drink. But now, as she is competing in a marathon next year, her up and down nature to her training has got to be consistent, and she's got some amazing insights into what that's bringing to her personally and professionally. So today we're going to dive into those insights, and once again we'll see a direct link between health, fitness and business success. So let's jump right in. Ginny, thanks again for joining. We've obviously met quite a few times. We've known each other for a couple of years, but sort of built that relationship in the last 12 months. So I know about the business and your fitness journey and going alcohol free. But for the people watching this that might not be as familiar with you or what your company does, can you give a quick intro into what you do and what your team does? And then I'd love to hear a little bit more about that health and fitness and how it's impacted what's happened with the business over the past 9 months.
Nice. So Interim Digital is a power connector between top digital marketing freelancers and top brands and agencies. We are a community of over 100 pre-vetted ex-agency digital marketing freelancers, all who have a minimum of 7 to 8 years experience in a given channel. We niche down into digital marketing specifically, so digital performance, SEO, PPC, etc. And we work predominantly with agencies to help them scale, grow, win more business with the support of top-notch freelancers. So that's us in a nutshell.
Very good. And then the focus on health and fitness. And I suppose from what I know of you, just got a place at the marathon. You stopped drinking 9 months ago. You and I have spoken quite a bit about the impact that the stopping drinking has had, particularly on how you approach business over the past, it's 9 months, isn't it?
It's 3rd of January. I'm annoyed I didn't start on the 1st now because there's that 3-day window in January, but 3 days into January I started,
Yeah, tell us a bit about that, about the last 9 months particularly.
So it's something health and fitness is something that I've always had a very odd relationship with. Extremes, so either really on it or really off it, and that is from childhood. I was a classic case fat kid, being totally honest, then kind of lost the puppy fat, got a bit more into health and fitness, then gained a load more weight when similar time to you, moved to London after school, was working in sales down there, was working for a newspaper, so was doing Media Thursday, same as you, out on the lash constantly, then uni, out on the lash constantly, eating a load of crap constantly, just all very similar to your story really. And as adulthood progressed, whilst the nights I still drank a lot, still ate a lot of crap, but I just got earlier in the day because I couldn't hack the late nights out. So the late nights out would transition to pub afternoon and day sessions. And that's just really how I've been, and not because I haven't been that classic case addict falling asleep in a gutter and that kind of stuff, but it's just been part of my character, and I genuinely loved the sesh. And I know that sounds awful, but when you're in your 20s, I just loved it. I love going out with friends, I love socializing on it, till I didn't. And I would say in the last 2 to 3 years, the quote that I steal from you every time is, the mornings after were no longer worth the night before. That's gone throughout my entire career, from working newspaper side, sales side, digital agency side, freelancer side, self-employment side. I've always had that background of booze as my go-to to chill, my go-to to switch off, my go-to to dampen everything, disconnect from work. But it was actually in the last 2 to 3 years becoming less of a dampener and more of an amplifier of the hard stuff. All of the stuff that we've spoken about before, difficult client communication, motivation to do the boring stuff, motivation to get up and go to the gym, all of that stuff was really waning, much more so than it did in my late 20s, early 30s. And I've tried to moderate throughout my entire life. My personality type, I've come to realize, just does not do that. It's all or nothing. If I open a bottle of wine, it's not the glass of wine, it's the bottle of wine. And then if I go for a second, it's not a second glass of wine, it's a second bottle. And, it just doesn't work for me like that. So last year, 2023, I thought, right, I'm going to knock this on the head. I'm going to moderate, and started tracking my booze consumption daily, not levels of what I was drinking, but just frequency. And at the start of the year, I said, right, if I'm going to do 80-20, I'm allowed to drink 20% of the year, then we've cracked it. 80-20 is all right. Got to the end of the year and I'd drunk on 60% of the days. And I was just like, right, I've aimed for 20%. I'm 3 times worse than what I aimed for at the start of the year. I am not capable of this moderation situation. So started with dry Jan, never really had the intention of necessarily being dry all the way through to now. But just like we were talking about before the call, every day that I get further away from my last drink, the less reason I find to want to go back. So everything is getting better. It was bloody horrible at the start, and we can get into that if you want, but because I think it's important for everybody to see that actually quitting the booze isn't amazing for a lot of people when you first go dry. It's really bloody hard. We've talked a lot about the emotional side of it, but 3, 6, 9 months in, and it's like, did not know this world existed.
I know. And we've spoken before and earlier today about the compound effect that it has. And I shared with you several different cases that are happening at the moment and it's following exactly the same pattern with those different people who are at different stages, 6 months, 3 months, 2.5 months, and 6 weeks. I didn't realize that. So I'd learned something new about people every time we have these chats, but you went for 20% and then you hit 60%. When you saw those figures, was that the defining moment that made you hit dry Jan? And then what was the defining moment in dry Jan, potentially, that made you now in the middle of November?
So I've done dry Jan the last probably, 4 or 5 years,
and then,
just like everybody.
You just take the roof off on the 30th.
Yeah, and probably the 29th or the 28th. Yeah. And I'd always start on the 3rd or the 4th as well. So dry Jan in inverted commas, probably 3 weeks. But I bizarrely saw a podcast by Tom Holland, the guy who plays Spider-Man. And he was talking about how his relationship with booze, the bit that scared him was how difficult it was for him to do dry Jan. And I was like, oh, that resonates quite a lot, because I didn't find it easy to just not have a drink. My thought process was completely preoccupied of, oh God, I wish I could have a drink. Oh, I can't wait to have a drink. And it was the amount of mental space trying not to drink was taking up gave me the proper creeps in terms of it. I'm actively having to push myself not to have that glass of wine at the end of the day. And everything I was doing had some form of booze attached to it. So having a glass of wine whilst I'm cooking. So it's not like wild, but I'm not out on that absolute session till 4 a.m. It's I'm cooking a Sunday roast, so it's nice to have a big glass of red wine whilst I'm doing that. Or I'm watching the rugby on Sunday, England, France, or the Six Nations. Of course, I'm going to have 3 or 4 beers whilst I'm watching. All of those things that are naturally associated with booze were just ingrained in my everyday being. And when I tried to unwind that, it took so much conscious effort that I thought, this isn't solvable with a dry Jan. It needs more than that. So I think that was the real kicker for me, was him saying how scared he was by how hard he found it. I was like, oh, that resonates a bit too hard.
I agree. If I look back, I had periods of abstinence and it was really difficult for me to do. Definitely resonates with me. The impact on the business, if you don't mind sharing.
Of course.
How's that been this year?
Amazing, actually. It's undeniable. We were saying in our last chat, I think, where there's not a tangible figure I can put on productivity, but it's just his 100% happened because the revenue figures are the best we've ever had this year. That's not coincidence. And it's not like I've intentionally gone, right, this year I'm going to do 10 bits of outreach daily and I'm going to do this and we're going to do that. There's been much more consciousness in terms of marketing and focus on retainers, focus on just kind of our brand messaging. All of that stuff has been very conscious and very, very intentional. But I wish there was a magic metric that could just say, well, actually, if you looked at yourself this year versus last year, the impact of your productivity is huge. I think what the biggest thing for me potentially is I set some targets in my note. I was looking at them the other day, actually, my notebook here. at the start of the year. And we're now about probably 3 times up on those targets. And I think what the kicker for me with that on reflection is that I probably had no idea how much I was underselling our potential, because I was under this cloud of hangover, booze, cycle, unhealthy eating, crap in, crap out. And like you saying in our last chat, it wasn't that we were unsuccessful or underperforming as such ever, really. I'm still doing, I still work for myself. I'm still really proud of that. But I had no intention, no realization on the true opportunity, because I put that figure on it thinking, oh, that's quite punchy in January, thinking I felt quite good and ready to go. Fast forward 11 months and we're 3 times where I thought we'd be. Yeah. So it's maybe it messes with your consciousness and it doesn't let you see your genuine potential.
I know I mentioned to somebody is I now know what good looks like. I think from my own perspective, and that's the reason I gave up 5 years ago in Jan, was because I realized that I was not going to fulfill my potential. And then 3 months later, the business is set up and we're 4.5 years later and launching the new event stuff and all that type of thing. That just, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in this house.
Well, exactly.
And you and I to prioritize our health, wellness. Fitness has got it's in the same bracket for me, but it's people think you've got to be sweating regarding fitness. You don't really, and we'll come on to that a little bit later. It's walking the dog a couple of times rather than just for 20 minutes in the morning and going an hour, and it's all very different. We decided to prioritize our health and fitness. Both of us in January. You're building the business, re-exit. You'll be busier than ever. You've got a very active social life, very close to your family. You've talked to me before about going away with friends. How do you now prioritize your health and fitness in a busy week, busy month? Have you got any secret sauce, and you can go into the detail of, I do this class on a Wednesday, I do that. How does it all fit in? How do you balance work, health, fitness, and family again, essentially?
It's a really good question. And so I've done a lot of trial and erroring, knowing my personality traits and knowing that I don't have a very easy middle ground I'm very extremes. So to minimize those extremes, I've tested different routines, times of day, types of exercise, types of food, types of this, types of that, to try and optimize myself or my day to make sure I'm the most productive. Because you see all this stuff about you've got to do super long hours and hustle culture and all this crap. And actually, it's not about the amount of time you're doing stuff for. I think it's what you're doing in the time that you are dedicating to certain things. So you could sit at your desk for 10 hours and read the Daily Mail for half of it and you say, oh, I've done an amazing day. Or you could sit at your desk for 4 hours and be intentional about what you're doing, and it's much more productive. So after all of these trials and tribulations, I've worked out that I'm very much a morning person. And my energy starts here, and come 3:30, 4 o'clock, we are depletion stages. So I do, as much as it pains me to say, I do get up at 5:30 every day. I do that because every day, 4 out of the 5 days a week, I think working days a week, because I know that works for me. But I'll never preach ever and say to anyone, you need to do that, because it's about finding the hours in your day that you know that you operate the best. So I know that if I get up at 5:30, do my F45 at 6, and that is 2 weight training sessions a week, and it would be 2 to 3 cardios, but now the running's going to have to take shape in there somewhere. Minimum 4 days a week of that routine. The 5th day, I'll still get up, say 6-ish. It's a bit more difficult in the dark mornings, but 6-ish, and go for a walk with a podcast every week. Because I know that when I get to the office, I will then be much more productive in those early hours in the day. And then I know that come 4-ish, 4:30, I'm on the decline. And that is my brain tapping out. So there is no point in me trying to push myself in those hours of the day, because it doesn't work for me. So I don't book calls after 3:30, generally. Very worst case, if something has to happen, which hasn't in the last 4 years, I think I won't have a call after 3:30. I prioritize stuff, inverted commas, planning podcast stuff, planning stuff which I really enjoy at the back end of the day. Then I go home. Now I don't drink, and then I'm in bed by 9:30 because I am elderly. But that is how it's impacted my day. But removing the booze has given me the opportunity to really tune in to what that day looks like for me in terms of optimal. My idea of hell would be waking up at 7 and then not doing anything until 9 or 10. because I'm immediately need to do something. As soon as I wake up, I need to do something, because then I know I just go, oh, by the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that's great. And what else did you test?
Oh, I've tried it's about that block of window of time. So trying to start things a bit later, or I've tried gymming myself, just going to the gym, and I cannot stand it. Like the fact that I don't have anyone around me doing the same kind of stuff. We talked about this with your high rock stuff as well. That group session where it has to start at a certain time, and once you're in, you cannot flake out early. You have to be there for the full 45 minutes. So I can't slack because they're there telling me to get on with it. So that structure in amongst my routine really helps. I am my own worst enemy when it comes to flexibility. The less flexibility I give myself, the better I am at my routine. And that sounds really draconian and hard discipline, but it's not discipline for me. It's just I'm a pain in the ass with myself if I don't do that, basically.
No, I love that. And you've just got in for the London Marathon next year.
Exactly.
Have you ever done anything like that before? That's a big goal. Go for that question first. Have you ever done?
Well, I did, in inverted commas, the Great North Run when I was in my fresher year of uni, which was the stupidest thing I have ever done in my entire life. I could plod 5K at the time, and I was like, I can do Great North Run. I thought I was going to die. I thought that was my last day on the earth. I did it with my mother-in-law, and she whooped my ass. So it was in and out, like, totally fine at the end, went for dinner. I was on my knees. So to say I've traveled that distance on foot before, not comfortably and not prepared. So I do enjoy running when I get into it. I hate the first bit of running, but I do enjoy the outdoors. And actually a big part of the booze-free life has been getting outside loads and just being outside. For people like us who inherently work inside most of the time, having that excuse to take your music or podcast or whatever it is for an hour or a couple of hours and be completely self-indulgent in that world, but outside is actually amazing. So
nice. Do you think there's a correlation between business goals and health and fitness goals?
Oh, 100%. I think not initially. I think if you have a really bad relationship with booze, or I guess food, I have issues with food still because I'm a sugar head now that I've lost my alcohol addiction.
I was exactly the same still very occasionally now. Wine gums, jelly bean, chocolate. It had to, I think it was my body asking for this hit of sugar every so often, and it went on for quite a long time.
Definitely. And I think that's quite a normal thing with when you come off the booze. But I think the issue I've always had in the past is that when I've tried to change lifestyle, I've tried to do everything in one go. So it's like a big diet, loads of training, change loads of stuff at the same time, and then fail massively after about 2 months, if I'm lucky. So I've been much, I guess, more, not logical, but just a bit softer on myself this time. And when I removed booze, that was the focus. There was no other kind of revenue targets for business or other specific goals that I was focusing on. I was just allowing that to happen organically in the background, but with the one focus of sorting my mental state out. Because I did that last year as well, because post-COVID, I had a really strange kind of mental state time where it was very dark. It was very odd. Just found myself in depressive states, which I think a lot of people did post-COVID. And 2023, I had the intention of coming in, hitting everything hard. And literally on the 1st of Jan, I was like, the business is going to take second state, actually. And this year is going to be about me working out what the hell I need to do to get my mental state right and to work out what the hell I need to do that. And funnily enough, the business was absolutely fine, didn't decline at all, steady state, fine. And I had the best personal mental journey probably last year that has then led into sobriety this year, which has then led into the best revenue year we've ever had in business. So I think adopting that you first, business second, ultimately has led to our business being in the best state it has been so far.
Nice. No, fab. And I'm sure that you will learn an awful lot through your marathon training, digging deep, getting into those difficult situations. Then when that happens at work, I've been here before. That's something that I've never done a marathon. But that's something that Claire Heaverside mentioned as well, is that she does about 4 marathons a week to and from work.
Yeah, she does.
That's what she's trained her mind to know, that things are going to get tough. And that's that long distance running has helped her with
Yeah.
that. And I'm sure that you'll get, my wife's doing the same training, she's going to get something similar. When you've got to go out on that horrible Sunday evening when you don't really, and you've got to dig out 25, 28K or something like that, it's going to be, but that'll teach you a lot about yourself, and then that'll, without doubt, impact work, I think.
Definitely. And I think one of the biggest impact for me, going back to that peaking and troughing constantly, is the crossover into business of not, I don't think with my mindset, I'll never flatten out those peaks and troughs, but they've become a lot less extreme, which when making business decisions has had a wildly positive impact. Because if we have a tricky client situation, it's all of a sudden not the worst thing in the world. It's just an everyday business decision to make. We've got a big corporation tax bill today to pay, or VAT bill, or whatever those things that last year or the previous years will have felt mountainous and awful are just everyday business decisions that you have to make. I won't be the last, I won't be the first to make any of these decisions that I'm making. Similar to you, we are not the first business owners out there. We won't be the last business owners out there. So it gives you the ability to have clarity and perspective a lot easier than if you're shrouded in this kind of, hungover state constantly. It just means you approach everything a lot more calmly. And I don't attach myself to difficult situations as much as I used to as well. So the rumination that I'd go through on really awful business stuff the last couple of years would literally drill me into sleepless nights, cancelling the gym in the morning because I felt like crap, then drowning my sorrows that night, and Deliverooing, and all of those little ripple effects that unhealthy lifestyle has. And by the way, I must say, I'm not flipping Mr. Motivator these days. Do you know what I mean? I'm not the healthiest person in the world, but I'm damn sight better than where I was. And seeing the positive impact of those steps so far just fuels the fire. And it also, I find, helps when you do not fall off the wagon, when you do have treats like this weekend away I've just had that we were talking about top of the call, still based around a load of cheese boards, chocolate, having fun. But when you get back, it's so much easier to get back into the zone when you're dealing with a hangover as well. A food hangover is bad, but it's like a day. A booze hangover that knocks you out for a few days, not worth it.
No, I agree with you. You might have already touched on this, but what drives you to stay committed to the health decisions that you've made, both in terms of day-to-day and in the long term?
So I think for day-to-day business-wise, the calmness and the motivation sticks around a lot more. And even on the days where I'm not motivated, I would say the days that I procrastinate now are still 10 times more productive than a procrastination that was at least they're natural procrastinations as opposed to boozy crude or occurred. So I think in terms of day to day, just doing and achieving so much more without putting 10 times more effort in. It's just, and I think that's the biggest thing that we've spoken about as well, is that I haven't set my stall out to go, right, I'm going to quit booze and then I'm going to do so much more. It's just, I've quit booze and so much more is happening. It's not a conscious throwing myself into doing loads more.
It's just like there's more hours in the day. And I said to my pal, who's about 10 weeks into non-drinking, I said to him, what you'll see after the first few weeks, maybe second month, that third month, that fourth month, is time will start to go very slowly for you. All of a sudden, you're like, wow, I've got so much, I can do so much more. And also, as a sort of a segue to that, when you're not boozing and you're mentally stimulated consistently and you're on it and you're having those sessions of, some people call it deep work and things like that, but when you do that, you are naturally just tired at 9 o'clock. And when you get up at 5:30, you've had 7.5, 8 hours sleep. So people talk the 5:30 get up. It's just my body wakes up. And bizarrely, I always wake up 2 minutes before my alarm. And there are some days where I'll set the alarm a bit later, but I don't tend to wake up because I've got consistency in what I'm doing. There's not that random night where you go out where you then need to catch up on the rest of the sleep and all those types of things. So I just think the hours in the day, there are 24. And I think when you're consistent on your health and fitness and whatever, or wellness and whatever that might be, whatever you're making, food, drink, exercise, you're able to use more of the 16 hours that you're actually awake.
Definitely. And it gives you a better ability to pivot in the day as well. So when you're like us and running a lot of your own channels within your own business, and you haven't got the luxury of massive teams around you who are doing loads of stuff for you, I can be in account stuff 1 hour and then marketing the next, and then podcasty stuff the next. And before, if I felt rough or tired or non-motivated, it would be, if I can just get this one thing out, then cool. But now I'm like, right, blocks of work, let's get this done, and then we can do that bit. Oh, and then we'll probably do that bit. Your energy doesn't wane as much and as quickly as it did before. And it just, everything feels a lot less forced. Yep. You're not forcing yourself to get up. You're not forcing yourself to, oh, I must look at accounts today. I still will never enjoy that. I know I will never enjoy certain elements of it, but I find it a lot easier to do the stuff that I don't enjoy now, because I've got a clearer mind, clearer thought process, all of that nice, lovely stuff.
I agree. Setbacks. Everybody has them. And it might be before the last sort of 9-10 months with you, but can you remember a time when you fell off track from a health and fitness perspective? You obviously haven't fallen off the booze bandwagon, although there's no pressure on that, obviously, and you're not putting yourself under pressure. But have you fallen off track, and then how did you get back on?
God, my entire life is on and off track. That is what dictates my entire, or has dictated my entire life since childhood through to just this year. And it still does to this day. I'll still nail a bag of Cadbury's something or other and then just be like, oh, for God's sake, and then sort it out the next day. I definitely am not a health food addict just yet. So I think when you've got that mindset where it is so all or nothing, it is exhausting. You're constantly knackered because you're either trying to think to not do something, I can't drink today, I must, or you're trying to force yourself into doing something. Oh, I must go to the gym today. And that mindset is exhausting. So I think and which is kind of, again, in your 20s when you're testing stuff, you're learning stuff, you don't really care, you're just out on the session, it's fine. But when you're 35 plus, I couldn't keep up with myself. Like, I was annoying myself that much with it that something had to change. And those couple of years after COVID, where it was like my body and my mind said enough is enough, and it just shut down. And I actually got COVID itself, and then instead of sitting up and letting it just leave the system, I pushed on through, worked through it, drank through it. 23rd of December, I was in A&E, thought I was having a stroke or something with it. It was insane. My heart rate was 187 or so by itself. And it was like my whole everything had just gone buff. That is a wake up call. You need to sort it out. And for those couple of years after that, it was all about, right, something needs to change drastically. And I didn't take a sledgehammer to drinking then, which I probably should have done. But it's been a gradual progression to stop that mindset of setback on it, and to get to a more steady state where I finally, at the tender age of 39, seem to have, but touching all of the wood, seem to have got somewhere closer to that.
No, that happens with most people. I think you gradually step into things, you chip away. I had periods of abstinence and was never drinking again, and then had another period. I think setbacks happen all the time, and the food one is an interesting one. I think you can't, there's a very famous quote, isn't it? You can't out-train a bad diet.
So true.
What do you do nutrition wise? Do you batch cook? Do you eat the same things every day? Do you pop around the corner and pop to Tesco or M&S or something and buy the same healthy thing? What do you do nutrition wise to help keep that consistency?
So that is an area that I still struggle with constantly, is the nutrition side. And one thing people say a lot is when you quit booze, you must lose loads of weight. And you really don't. You absolutely don't. Because if you're anything like me, you switch your booze for ice cream and chocolate and sweet stuff, which I was absolutely fine with at the start because I was so focused on just getting rid of the booze element. Nutrition was not an area of focus because I tried that before, tried to knock everything on the head at once. And that's where I always failed. I do love cooking though, and I love, what I've definitely found by being healthier and batch cooking and actively cooking more whole foods and things like that, I would say I obviously don't do that 100%. I absolutely don't. But the more I do it, the more crap I feel when I eat crap food. And you remove booze completely as out of the equation, and then you start to feel crap. It's like, well, I can't even blame it on the booze anymore. So what is it? And it's something else that's going in. I'm choosing to put whatever food inside me. So I found the more and more I've tuned my diet to be better, and it will be a constant slog for me. I know it will be, just mindset wise. That's just how my brain is programmed. The better I eat, the worse I feel when I don't eat well. So it just forces you back onto, and it's like your body rebelling, isn't it? And you know really well from doing the Gary Brecker stuff. But the more I used to be a wine and cheese girl. That was my wine and cheese absolute go-to. I'm amazing, but I'm now coffee and cake. So it's like, right, cake is great, but it's about having the clarity to not be as bad as I was. Yeah. And every single day that I make a good choice with food and pre-prep it, which I probably do, I'd say half the time at the moment. I'm much better in summer for some reason. I don't know if that's just a seasonal thing. Then the better I feel. And to be fair, I don't eat particularly badly. You don't have kids. We just me and my husband to think about. My husband does not have any issues with food whatsoever, like loves healthy food, which is really handy. So overall, I do a lot of cooking. I do like my sweet stuff as well. So
is he into his health and fitness? Does he go out running? Is he joining at the classes?
Well, funny is shortly after our podcast, he quit drinking. So he hasn't listened to our podcast, I don't think. And our relationship had always been built around going out. That's just, we've been together 15 years this year. So we've been through our 20s together, our 30s together, always out on the lash together. I quit earlier this year. He definitely toned it down, but didn't quit. And then just all of a sudden, out of the blue, over a month ago, he's got a month under his belt now, just knocked it on the head without saying anything. And he's very much think stuff through and get on with it. Whereas I think stuff through, talk about it loads, and then maybe do it, maybe don't. He looks incredible. We started playing paddle together, like that stereotypical couple activity. So yeah, I would say, to answer your question, a bit similar to you, actually. He's really sporty, and he's always been into sport forevermore. But as an adult, he hasn't really, not like you, he hasn't embraced any form of sport really. But he always played rugby, he always had good at tennis, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Never know, now he's not the booze on the head. He might start seeing he has more time in his day to be able to fit those things in if he so wishes.
Definitely, yeah. He's loving paddle and we're loving playing it together. So be the start of something mega to come.
Yeah, no, it's a good game. The community that you've got at F45, I know that's quite, we've spoken about it before with the community that I've got, the gym. Have you seen any business opportunity come through that community? And if not, could you see it coming?
Yeah, I'd say yes, in a loose sense of the word. So I've met lots of people who there's been kind of loose connection to business with. Even things like work photos. Was a lady that I met at the gym who is also in digital, works at another agency, happened to be a photographer, does great photos, and we connected that way. Got my marathon place because of someone that I met at the community, in the F45 community, who then linked me in with someone at charity. So in disparate kind of ways, yes. In terms of being surrounded by people with a similar mindset, or even miles ahead of my mindset and kind of, for me, mindset, had a definite direct impact on my business via osmosis of wanting to, or seeing them and thinking, my God, I'd love to be in the shape of my life like she is, or, as grounded and as incredible looking as she is, and just having those kinds of people around you, like the lady I was talking about who called so lovely, already done 11 marathons, like knocked out 11 marathons. Like, she looks amazing, she knows her stuff, and just having those people around you, I think directly impacts your day-to-day being, for sure.
Yeah, I think I've told you this before, but there's business opportunity that's come out of the community that I've got. We've got people coming on the 3-day events because they've seen me wearing a branded t-shirt with
exactly.
it on. And they're like, oh, they were business owners. And then Adam, who's past 12 months, he owns the gym. He's been just game changing for me in terms of my development of how he approaches his life, how structured he is, a way that calmness that you say. He's probably the best people developer that I've ever met. How dedicated he is towards staying fit and healthy, and the role model that he wants to be for his daughter. She's 3, is an awful lot from that. Osmosis. I like that. I haven't heard that word since school.
I know. I don't know where that came from.
Fabulous. An underused word, I think. But
Yeah.
it's great, isn't it? I think you see there's that trust element in people as well. And just a bit of a common thread through these conversations that I've been having over the past 3 or 4 weeks is that somebody, to quote Joe to Story, who did the first pod with me, he said, when somebody leaves it all on the floor in a HIT class, there's a level of respect for that person. And then when you see them do it again and again and again, and we don't know the complete makeup of it, but like our high rocks sort of HIT classes that we do, you're on the runner, or you could be on the assault runner, you go to the sled, and then you've got a couple of lengths to do on the sled, certain distance to do on the assault runner, and you're back. And then the next one might be the skier followed by the wall balls. There's no problem with this. But what Joe was saying is that he notices, and he won't mind me saying this, and I feel the same. You notice the people that take the breaks and that they go off and they towel themselves, they have that extra bit of water or whatever it might be. You notice the people that just go straight from station to station. The trust element when somebody sort of, they're all mentally and physically, I think a lot that you'd want to do business with those people.
Definitely. And I think it says a lot about individuals if they're prepared to be out of their beds at 6 a.m. and cold studio working together. And I think as well that the nice thing about the F45 mentality is that it doesn't matter what kind of stage you're at of that journey, everyone is so welcoming of anyone. And the fact that people are showing up at that time to do something that is very hard is just a huge kudos tick in the first place. So whenever we get new members, they try and put them with a F45 veteran, show them the way, because it's sure same as High Rocks, it can be quite daunting and pretty scary to walk into a room of 25 people who are all chatting away and done it. Well, we're not that chatty at 6 o'clock, but come 6:45, we're much more chatty. But it's a great community, and I think it's been a big it has been a big part of my development for the past 5 years, because I've been going there for 5 years on and off. But when I first walked through the doors and saw the people in there, I was thinking, there's no chance I'm going to be able to stick through this. These guys are insane. 1.5 stone overweight, like frown the box jumps, like dead. I mean, dead. And I still get, like we were saying last pod, dead at the end of it, but in a different kind of dead. Then it was just pure survival. How am I even going to do this? But 5 years on, off, I still get the same buzz at the end of it. I still love speaking to the same kind of people. I've seen people grow and look incredible and feeling credible, and community vibe is still there. And also I think when you're in a bit of a crappy mental state, F45 can 100% take credit for getting me out of some of those really awful stages. Because just being in that room and feeling so hungover and so crap, and looking at everybody else who, someone's already just done an outside walk with their husband, and then come to F45 at 6 o'clock in the morning, fresh as a daisy, ready to go. And I'm there just thinking, if I can sweat this red wine out, that's an achievement. It's like having those people around me were the people I was like, I just need to be more like them. But I know that sounds negative, but do you know what I mean? Just if I could just get onto a mental wavelength that they're on. So yes, I'm here in the room, but I'm not really here in the room.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, on a mental perspective. So just seeing those people every day lifts you up and pulls you out of dark periods.
No, that's awesome. You've said there, and what you said before about try different things, being tested, different routines out. The group structure really works for you at a time, can't leave, just got to get through it. You might as well from it rather than just get through it. Answer this next question, but there's a bit of a final one for business leaders that are thinking about prioritizing their health but don't really know where to start, or they're a bit nervous about it. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to get them going?
Crap out. I literally, at my worst, I was 3 stone heavier than what I am now. And I was not firing on all cylinders. You can't be at your best. You are out on a media Thursday or whatever your weapon of choice is of nights out. You have to fine tune it. When you get to mid-30s and upwards, you have to start taking responsibility for that. And whether that is, you don't have to be 3 stone overweight to start. Do you know what I mean? I was probably quite an extreme case. If you just start small and don't try and do everything all at once.
Would you advise to go to a class, for example?
Yeah, I would 100% would, because the kindness and the community vibe that you get from those places is unreal.
Yeah.
Like, I think as well, it takes, so for me, things like strength work, if I went to the gym by myself, I would never do half the stuff that I learned at F45 because I just didn't know what I was doing. I guess the only way I'd really know is if I got a PT or something like that. But I just find the thought of that dull, on one, just no team environment, people around you. But I would literally just go and try something, but don't try everything all at once. Who is eating a load of crap like I was and drinking way too much, don't all of a sudden try and eat, and go totally sober and then all of a sudden enter a marathon day one. I've been battling with this stuff for 10, 15 years, if not longer. So it's been a staged approach to being at my very, very, to then coming out of that, to feeling much better and being able to tackle them. And I don't know if you've seen or come across so many people have read it, but I was late to the party, the Atomic Habits book from James Clear. I'm sure everybody watching this has probably read it, but I was late to the party. But he talks about habit layering. And that has stuck with me for so long, because it's just like fine tune one bit. So if you quit drinking, but then you start eating loads of crap, don't worry about it. Just nail drinking bit first. And then when you get comfortable and you're 30, 60 days into that, let's look at the food. Then you're 30, 60 days into that, let's start looking, if you're quitting the booze, just start walking. Forget F45, don't bother with high rocks. Just go outside for 10 minutes a day. And that's what I did in January. I was literally not drinking, eating crap and walking. But little bits were better than the year before. At the end of that month, went back to F45, kept on not drinking. So I was better, more exercise, not drinking, still eating crap. Month 3, started to look at the diet, but I'm still not drinking. Now I'm still going to F45, and now I'm starting to look at my food and progressively add in good stuff. And then a few months later, you're like, holy crap. I never knew the world could be as colourful or as calm as it is now.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
That's all right. No worries. Well, thank you for chatting. I could chat about this stuff forever, but no, it's all good.
Nice one. Cheers, Ginny.
All right. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Bye.